I welcome you all to my YouTube channel. This is Raj. This is regarding a full stack development which contains front end as ReactJS and back end as Spring Boot and the integration part as OAuth2. This is a continuation video of back end development using Spring Boot and Spring Security OAuth2 protocol. I have made one more video in the previous tutorial. Please do watch and come back here because in this tutorial we are just going to connect the Spring Boot security with database. So I have made the basic video in the first video. So please do watch and come back here. Let's dive into straight to our code. Before we are diving into our code, I just want to give the overview what we have done so far. So like I've been telling you for the last two videos, there is one the Springboard guy is there, and it has the server, and the server contains two parts. One is resource server and one is authorization server, and in code level we are making a demo application as we have made in the previous video. This is the main program where every application of a Spring Boot starts and the password encoder. So we are using obviously Spring Boot security, so we are using decrypt passcode encoder for every encoding decoding things. And as I told you in the picture, there is in server level there is two configuration is there. One is authorization server and one is resource server. So everything in Spring Boot is just a configuration. Everything in Spring itself a configuration. They have built it, we are configuring here. So we need to configure authorization server, resource server, and the web security protocol in order to allow our OAuth2 protocol. So here we have made our custom user detail service because Spring itself has user detail services, but we have made it our own, so we can use our own password and the username from our database rather than the default Spring security passwords. It's not unsecure, So in the custom user details, we have created one dummy class where I have given my user as whatever you have given, and the password, the greatest password of all, just password as password, and everything is true. So we have done this, and we have created one more REST controller where it says it's just walking, and one more controller where is my home controller. So this is this API slash in the authorizations. So here in the resource server I have made slash API. Anything comes, it should be authenticated, and anything other than slash API is not authenticated. It is permitted by all. So I have shown you the demo of the home controller, which is nice home if it is authenticated, not nice home if it is not authenticated. So this everything in a step-by-step code manner I have done it in the previous video, so please go and watch it. It will be worth it. So let's move on to the next part, which is the database connectivity between Spring Security and the Spring Boot framework itself. Here I'm just using the H2 database, the in-memory database, so I don't need to install any other. Where is my H2? H2. So this is an in-memory database. You don't need to install anything else. So I have configured everything in the first tutorial itself. So this is like an in-memory database where it will run on the memory itself. It doesn't need any thing to be installed, or it doesn't need any username and password to be configured. It just runs in the in-memory database. So you don't need to do any data source configuration, nothing. You don't need to do. Spring Boot itself takes care all those things for you. Our job here is just to configure certain things. So I think the talk is over and I have talked so much here. Let's work. We have stopped here in the previous tutorial where we have created one user and username and password as password and encoder and encoder. So I want to create one more class called entity class, our database class. This com.slash.java. I'll put com.example as we are going through dot entity, and the class name is base entity, because this is a base entity. I'll explain you once I have done this. Let me just go through a couple of things. It's an abstract class. I'll explain you once this is done. Yep, I'll just type certain things and I'll get back to you right on way. So this is just I'm making this as a base entity. So any class which extends from the base entity will have certain functionality, because this is going to be a parent entity. Like some features, if I type, you might have known. So every table should have the one and only ID should be there for every entity. So I don't want to type everywhere. I just need to type it once and I want to extend it. Some other features, like in future I want to give some other property, I can able to do it here and it will be extended to the other classes. So as of now, I'm going to make it as simple as it is. So I'll just make this as ID. So it is an ID and it should be a generator value, because I'm too lazy to generate each time. So I'll give this response to the Spring Boot, and it has going to be inherited in the base class, and the inherited strategy, it should be inheritance type as table per class. So I don't want to create this as a separate class. So I want to create this as a table per class. So every class which inherits this will accommodate this ID property into its own. And yep, I'm pretty much done with this one. I'll just make getter and setter, and we are done. Now we need two more classes. One is user class, because user is the one who is going to log in into the application. So we need the user class, which contains the username and password and everything. So this is a public class. This is pretty much it. Just giving yes. And as I told you, it has to extend the base entity, so it will have the ID. This is my base entity, and I have to make it as at entity, so it can be a database class. Come on. So this we have done, and what else we need is we just need a couple of things, like user should have, definitely she should have a username. So I'll type it as username, and this guy should have password, otherwise how he is going to log in? I think that's it, pretty much it. So I don't want to create anything else, just as simple as possible. I'll just create a bunch of getters and setters. So one other reason I have to create is I need to define whether this user is active or not. It can be boolean, because one user I can make today active, and after that if I make inactive he cannot able to log into the system. And one more thing I need to make is role. List of roles. This is not existed, so I'm going to create one class. Add this class is going to be here and it's going to be role. I'm going to create it. Why? Because every user should have some roles in the systems. Uh, Without a role, he cannot log in into the system. Like manager is one role, like normal employee is one role, standard user is one role, admin is the one role. Based on the roles, the permission in the system will change for him. So he cannot, normal user cannot access the admin rights of the system. So where all these details we can get us from the role itself. So let's create as getter and setter. Tada! We have done with our user entity. And one more thing, one too many. Which either. So this just defines like this role. It has to be one user can have multiple roles. It's just a Java persistence API where the we can define. So this is like a Java class level we have defined it. This is for the persistence level. So we need to save it in the system. So we have to do certain persistence level. So we need to mention one user can have multiple roles. That's what one to many. And the fetcher should be every time when I pull the user, it should be fetch. That's it. Cascade, if you save user, you save the user roles also. That's what I have given, cascade type all. And let's dive into the role again. This is, we need to mention at entity, and we have to extend our base entity. And I have to give the role name. That's it, guys. We have done our our database configuration or the database, the name and the role user, we have defined it, and this we need to map it to our repository. Now we have created all the tables. Let's consider all this user and user role and base entity, which extends to user and user role, is been configured to user and user role, and this is like a data table. We have developed this. Let's assume once I run this application, it will create one each table in the database, has to database itself. So user is going to be one table, role is going to be one table. Now we have created that table, so we need to configure it in the customer user details, right? So this we have done, and in order to link, we need to have one interface, which is nothing but a database layer. So we have created the table. That how do we communicate to the database? Using database data access layer. So we have going to create one database repo where we can able to handle all the applications, like you need to save the user, you need to save the role, you need to give the save functionality, you need to update the user, you need to again modify something. These things is a bunch of things, right? So all these things we need to do it, and in order to do it, it's so complicated, guys. So we have to give a bunch of things, like database. Doing database is something difficult. I'll just mention this repository. I will show you how difficult it is, like doing this database operation in Spring. Like this is a JPA repository class where you need to give user, and the ID is going to be long. I have given it previously itself, and I have to give user is not this user but the user which we have created. Where is our user? Save this. But it's not showing our user. This is our user, our own user. So that's it. You have done save, update, delete, all the operation, because this special class JPA repository will take care all those functionality for you. You just need to mention the user table which you have created and the ID for that. This repository class is a common repository where it will take the complexity of saving the data, updating the data, creating it and deleting it and modifying it. It will do on its own framework, just as simple as it is. Like, you don't need to get scared. It's just simple as it is. That's the beauty of Spring Boot. You just don't need to do any hard stuffs. Spring Boot will take care for you. So it is as simple as it is. So we have just created our database class. We have created, and it will communicate to backend. Just giving our table, creating our table and giving JPA repository. We have actually established a database connection here. Since I don't do much, but Spring Boot will take care for you. Only one thing we need to do is like the normal functionality of save, update, delete, get all the user details, get everything, it will be done. But one thing it cannot do is the custom functionality. This it cannot. For example, you want to get this particular user from this table, this username. Like our Spring security requires, whenever it sends a user to the system, it needs the particular users to send back. That functionality we need to write it. But the common functionality like save, update, get all users, get by ID, These four functionalities taken care by JPA repository, and this is also pretty much simple. You no need to create any code at all. In Spring Boot, you don't need to create much code. You need to configure. So remember, my friend, I will show you why we need this particular class. So optional is one of the Java 8 functionality where if there is user exist, then it will give the user object. So in this functionality, again you might have asked, you didn't write anything else. How do you say this will give the user details? Because we have, this is a Spring Boot keyword. If you put find by and the property of the user, any property, if you want to find by password, no password, you cannot find, say any other things, like if I mentioned any email or anything like a phone number or any property like roles, we have name, something like that. So you want to find it, find by that property name, as simple as it is, and you have to given the parameter. Spring is smart enough to find out where this one, and it will go and fetch it for you. In the interface, you just need to define the syntax. Now we have successfully created our table, our database class. Now it's time for us to get dive into our custom user details and create. This guy I don't like because this is some dummy guy which is created in the system, and it doesn't hold any value because it's just hard coded value. One thing in programming, you should not hard code it. And so let's remove the hard coder. Let's put it null now. So since we have done the user interface, and I want this to be annotated as service as possible. So once we have created this user repository, we just need this user repository class. Since we have given it as interface, and we can just go ahead in our, that is our custom user details. Here you just need to auto wire those things because Spring itself will auto wire it for you. Don't need to create any. So we have created the user repository, and the user repository class contains the method which we need. Guess what the method we need? We need find by username, where the username which we already have, but Spring will not accept the user which you are passing. It will accept only the user which is in the Spring security. So whatever the user you have created, it's for you. Spring has no rights to get your user. It doesn't need your user. It wants its own user class. So it's so tough on that basis. Doesn't need any other class, but it does need its own property. So this whatever you have created, it's for you. So let's tell the Spring, okay, even though I have created, you can take the class from you. Again, map is Java 8 functionality where you can map or transform any object. So this time I will going to use Spring Core, and this imported. Yep, then we are fine, and we are pretty much going to use. So it requires certain functionality, like I'll just copy this entire thing. So again, I'm too lazy to type everything, so I'll just copy this, and so I want you dot get username, and you is again I needed the password, and this is pretty much you dot get that is the active, sorry, is active. So we am just converting our own user table to Spring specified user. So I pretty much put everything yes, and one more thing we need to create is like you have created your own role, but it is not the role I wanted. So Spring expect this role to be its own role. For that, we would require what is this new? Yeah, always miss it. So we have already defined our user role, so just need dot get roles dot again stream it. Again we need to do map, because I don't want to use the default username, so let me just quickly type and explain. Dot to array new string, open and close, close. So for this close, where is this one? Okay, upper class, I'll just remove this one. Nope, this is map, and from map I just need doing correct only. Show you expect semicolon. Collect only. So I've done collect only. Check one more time this. entire map is this one, and this user is completed here. This one not needed. Yep. Oh, this user is here. Okay. Spring is so regment like. So since this is like if user found, it will give the user, and if user is not found, just we need to throw some exception telling that new user. This is one of the exception, not found exception, user not found. Well, this or else throw. Spring. It needs everything to be perfect, otherwise it will throw. So basically we have done this as an optional. So as you have seen if in the repository, it is an optional. So it is asking like, so you have defined this as an optional. If user found, I can get the user. If not found, what I have to do? You have to tell the spring, oh yes, user found, process like this. If a user not found, throws an exception, user not found. That's it, guys. We have connected our database, we have established our load username, and we have given the exact thing whatever the Spring required to connect with the database. Like we have created this repo user repository, we have connected with the custom user details with the user repository, we have created the user and roles. Now it's time for our home controller to get, in order to get a nice home and nice home. This is, I like it so much, but I want to get the complete user details. So before doing that, we don't have any users now. So previously it's a hard coded value. We need to install some of the values to the database, right? So you haven't created any users, then how you can able to create is like whenever this main function calling happens, before that one more function in Spring. This is like all the beans are installed at the time you want to run something. There is one functionality called command line runner. This one will run whenever you want to set up like some database functionality or something you want to set up. This can able to set up. So I'll just give setup default user. So this one will be user service. We haven't created any services, so I will create that. So let's just assume the service is there, and this is just simply because we need to save some data into the database. So I'm just going to do bunch of things like return open and close. I want to just install one user, so I'll just quickly service.save, and we have not yet given this we have not yet created this service, so we will create it. User one, let's put this one is Raj. So but just user quickly, I'll create the user details. Simply give user here, and user dot set username Raj, and the password is going to be again Raj, and the roles user dot set roles. I need list of roles, so I'll just quickly create a array list here. I think I have made mistake. This is actually role dot add in role list, new role. Again, I have to create the role. I'll explain you quickly, guys. Just let me type it, taking time. So, new role. I should have installed this in constructor, so I haven't installed it. So name is I'll give this as user. This is a normal user, not an admin user. So it is nothing. We just created one user, and that we need to set the role for that user. I'm just setting the user maybe standard. I'll create it as okay. Let it be. This roles contain user role, so it is not an admin role. So let's make thing as an admin. Let's assume this is admin. So this admin has the so much provision than other system. I'm just setting to the user roles, and I'm setting to the user roles list. So we need to have one function where we can able to persist this one. So how do we do that? We need to create one user service. So let me just go ahead and create one more service called the user service, where we can able to persist this one. Let me quickly create this one as soon as possible. So I'll just so in Spring, anything you wanted a class to be auto injected, you wanted to make it as a service, and inside I would require auto wired, because we already have a database class. So this service is nothing. We'll call the user repository. Sorry. So this will have one method called save. So I'll just go ahead and key it void save, which has user. So this is our own user. So before we are going to save our user, we just need to secure it. Spring expect our set user. Sorry. Okay, this is you we need to set. So set password, where we need to encrypt it using password encryptor. I have explained this password encryptor in the video 1, so please go ahead and watch it. So this password encrypted, job is to encrypt our password in code u dot get password. That's it, guys. We have done our save user. Yahoo, we have done it, and we just need to import this one. Import it. Aux open. What is this error is coming? Build service. So I already have a service now. Error. User service. Oh, I have created here. It's okay. For time being, let it be here. And service I have initiated, and service dot save. Another error. I need to give semicolon and need to annotate at I am and spelling mistakes are binded together, so you cannot. That's it. We have done it. We have pretty much done our anything. So let's run our application. Hopes it won't throw any error. Controller, nice and the next one. Yep, it's opened. I'll just open my Postman to check whether this is working or not. So I have given my username as Raj and the username as Raj, and I have saved it in the database level. Before going for overview, let me just check everything is working as expected. So I haven't changed anything, just to accept the username and password. It should not throw any error, but invalid account is locked. I've done some mistake, I guess, so let me just. Did I set it? My mistake. Like, you have created the user, but have you set it active? No, I haven't set it as active. So, Spring saying, you have done wrong. How can you expect me to work as you expected? So, expect the unexpected. Let it go. Now I have simply made this as active because our user was not active in the previous. Again, I'm making this as an active user. Let's hope this runs now. Come on. Yep, it worked like a charm. I'll just copy this one, and where is my secure? Let's check. So with access token, it is nice home. Without access token and without secure token, not nice home. It is pretty much good, but I want to see uh, one controller where let's create one more controller. for displaying the user details. So this is just like a hard-coded value, right? But I want to see the database class. We have created a user and user roles, right? So I want to see the user details in the system, and what are the users and what are the roles which is stored in the table. So I want to see that. For that, let me create one more controller class, user controller, just controller. And I'll just quickly shut down this one. I will quickly make this everything quick. Just controller, edit annotator, immediately at request mapping should be /API, since this is the secured one. And I want repository class, so we can get the user detail, user repository, which we have created. So let's just copy this bunch of things here. And I'll quickly do user and get our user find out, which gives me the user list. Okay, this is the list of users, not just single users. So system will have indefinite user list. So I'm just making this as list. Let's run this one. So I'll again annotate this with request mapping as instead of request mapping. Yep, we need it. But this is a get REST API, so I'll just make it as get REST mapping and /user. Let's quickly run this. And while running this, I'll make this one /API/user. Let's get our access token, and we have got our access token. Let's try to get the user list. If you see, the ID is 1, username Raj, and the password you cannot read it because it is encrypted, and it is active, and the roles which has it is admin role. So let's see, without an access token, an hacker is going to hack this. No, you cannot, my friend. You cannot hack the system, but it's because it is protected by Spring Security. And that's it. So I'll give you the overview what we have done in this tutorial. We have created the user and user role, and we have created the base entity like IDs should be there, and we have extended to user and user roles. We have created user repository interface where we have the JPA repository. It is a Spring annotated framework, which is a JPA data.jpa, and it will do all the hard works for you. You just need to extend it, and any extra query you need to make it, just use the keyword of which Spring gives and use that. In the custom user details, this is the user details which Spring internally uses for the security, and we have given the user details from our user table. And as I told you, we need for the server, Spring Boot server, we need authorization server, resource server, on top of security with normal web security filters. We need to make it over here. and in the REST controller I have just make it as a user list. So anytime I call this function, it will get me find all repository. I have not created this find all. Spring Boot itself created this find all method for me. Why? Because I have extended this JPA repository. And that's it. That pretty much it. And user service should be in a service. One more package I have to create. It should be in a service package, but time being it is automatically created here. So let it be here for now. So this is pretty much it, and hope you all liked it. Happy coding. Thanks for watching it. Please subscribe. Thank you.